Good morning. Happy Monday. Hopefully, you had a nice weekend. Guys, we're about 1 month away from being done with the semester. That's so crazy. It went by really fast, and it's going to go by really fast. So, hopefully, you are doing your best to keep up in your classes, getting those grades up. You still have time, so just make sure you're doing your best. A little quick update. The unit test, you're actually not going to be taking it until next week, okay? We still have a little bit to cover, and I want to make sure that you guys have enough time for us to cover that material, and also for you to have time to work on your study guide and be ready for the test. Remember, for this class specifically, the test is worth 65% of your grade. So we want to make sure that you guys do really well on that test. You guys will have a little quiz on Friday. So make sure you're studying for that quiz on Friday. I'll try my best to put a little review thing up today. If I can't do it today, then I'll put it up tomorrow so you guys can study your your opportunities for you to bring your grade up, especially if you're on the lower side. It's a little bit less now, right? Because you have classwork, but the tests are the ones that are worth more points, and there's not that many left. So we need to make sure that we're on it and we're studying for those, okay? All right, so we've been talking about natural selection, evolution, all that good stuff. We talked about primate evolution and how evidence shows that humans are related to primates, that we have our ancestors, the hominins, the different ones that you drew last week and did that activity last week. If you're confused of where to put your hominin on the timeline because of the different characteristics or traits that you chose, don't worry about it. Just make sure that you understand the traits with the hominins for the timeline that I had you copy into your notebook. Okay, that one's a little bit more specific and clear, but just make sure you understand those for your test. I'll be working on the study guide this week so I can have it up so you guys can start working on that. But all right, let's finish up chapter 9. We're going to do a little review of chapter 13 and 8, and then we'll be ready to go. All right, so chapter 9.4, social interaction and group behavior. So you know what behavior is, right? We all have our behavior, but the actual definition of behavior is behavior. So the actual definition of behavior is a response to stimuli in the environment. So response to stimuli in an environment. Stimuli is just something that causes a reaction, right? So if you have your phone in your pocket right now, right, and it vibrates, that's a stimuli. That's going to cause you to respond. You might be like, oh, it might just be a thought, right? And you might be like, oh, I got a message. Oh, I got a notification. And you might act on it and take out your phone and check your phone to see who it is. Or maybe you get home and someone is cooking your favorite meal, right? Or baking your favorite dessert. That smell is going to be a stimuli. It's going to cause you to get hungry, or it's going to cause you to feel some type of way or feel happy, right? Something like that. So let's talk about the different types of behavior, which are called learned behaviors. There's 4 of them, okay? So there's going to be a subheading. Learned behavior. Hope everyone's doing well. I miss you guys. Here a little tired, newborn phase, but he's a really good baby, so can't complain, but still tired. All right, so let's talk about one of them. So one of them is habituation. Oh, not the color I was going for. There we go. Habituation. Think about habituation like a habit, right? So you, by this point in the school year, you have your habit. You know what you're doing during the week, whether you do sports or not. You go home, you have to do chores, you have some clubs to go, whatever it is you do during the week, you have your habit down. You know you're going to be doing this during the day. When you get home, you're doing this. You have your habit. Or when you're trying to create a habit, right? A lot of times you'll hear people, oh, trying to work out or trying to exercise or trying to read every day. You're trying to build a habit, something you're getting used to. So the definition of habituation in terms of behavior is when an animal decreases or stops responding to stimuli. Even if it gives reward or harm. Okay, so for example, you have a worm that lives in the sand. And you can apply this anywhere, right? You can do like a deer in the forest, you can do different animals, or even yourself, right? You live somewhere, you do something, and then there's something that's happening. So in this case, we're talking about a worm that lives in the sand. Pretend there's a shadow passing by, whether it's an animal or a person. So a shadow keeps passing by. So what does that do? It causes the worm to retreat back into the sand. Okay? Because this worm is like, I don't know if this shadow is a threat. I don't know if this shadow is going to come and, I don't know, stomp on me, kill me, whatever it is. But what happens is the shadow keeps passing by, right? So shadow continues to pass by. But at this point, nothing is happening, right? So the worm knows, oh, no food or threat is happening, so I don't need to worry about it. Worm learns that there is no. That there is no food or threat. So what is it going to do? Stop retreating. So the worm stops retreating, right? So you're getting used to it. Number 2. And it's very similar to like when sometimes, I don't know if it's happened to you, but sometimes when your parents are like, if you don't do this, this is going to be a consequence or punishment or something like that. But after a while, or if you want to ask for permission to go somewhere, right, and they're like, no. But sometimes you end up learning how to talk to your parents or get what you want, right? So sometimes you'll learn there's no punishment or consequence, or if I do this, if I do chores, my parents will say yes, right? So you're habituated, you learned that there's either no punishment if you keep doing certain behaviors, or um, if you get in the habit of doing something, you're going to get what you want. So very similar. All right, insight learning. Oh, learning. So insight learning. All right. Insight learning is actually the most complicated form of learning. Why? Because here you have to apply something you've learned. So animal applies something it has learned to a new situation. Okay. So for example, when you're in Mr. Hogan's class or your math class, right? And you get that test. Let's say the test is on Pythagorean theorem. What happens when you get the test? How do you work out the same Pythagorean theorem problems? You're going to apply what you've learned, which is the formula and the steps of how you get to solve it. So new math problem on the test. So how are you going to solve it? You're going to apply okay. Here, right? If you're talking about an animal specifically, here you can think about a learned behavior here for an animal would be when they've been in a situation and something happened to them, right? So if you have, can't think right now. If you have a cat that goes into a new house, right, and they end up seeing that there's a dog or there's something there that caused them to, I don't know, they ate some kind of food that was left outside and caused them to be sick. Now when they go back into another house, they're going to act differently. They're going to behave differently. They're probably not going to eat that food, or they're going to be checking to see if there's a dog first. But here you're applying what you already learned to a new situation.